Hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Johnson, and I'm joined today by Jen Roth. Jen is a entrepreneur and business owner. And Jen, would you kick things off here with just giving us a little bit of your background and what you're doing?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me.
Thanks for
I
being here.
always love getting to do podcasts and talk to like-minded people, so it's fun to be here. I just by way of background, I own a marketing agency called Sparq Marketing, and we specialize in working with kind of mid-sized businesses or businesses in a high growth mode that are looking for kind of a marketing strategy that can be activated, implemented, measured by kind of either internal resources and or augmented by kind of a fractional marketing team. And so that's what we do best, and it's a lot of fun. I also am the president for the chapter of EO Minnesota, which is Entrepreneurs Organization Minnesota, and that is a entrepreneurial peer advisory group in the Twin Cities. And there are about 100 EO members and about 50, actually I think it's 55, EO accelerator members. And what that means is if you are a business owner with a business that is worth 1 million or more in annual revenue, you might choose to join EO as a majority business holder or a total owner. And if you are working towards building a business like that, we have a program called Accelerator, and that's typically starts with people who are generating about 250,000 in annual revenue, and with the goal to get to 1 million or more in 3 to 5 years. So it's been a lot of fun because I get to kind of surround myself with my tribe in that. And then actually come from Ceridian, where I spent many years kind of becoming a marketer and then leading marketing teams. So I have a kind of a long corporate history that led into entrepreneurship and agency ownership. So
Well,
that's me.
it's so good to hear that you give back through an organization like EO. I think it's amazing how many entrepreneurs take the time to do that because I know given busy schedules how challenging that can be. But that's great. How long have you had? It's called Sparq, is that right?
Sparq.
Blue
Yep,
Spark.
Sparq Marketing.
How long has Blue Spark been in business?
Yeah, it's been in business for about a year and a half now.
Okay, so
And we've been lucky enough to grow at a quick but steady and predictable rate. So it's been a lot of fun. That said, it is predicated on a previous agency that I owned with a business partner for about 7 years. So it really is more like a 2.0 than a brand new agency because a lot of I'm lucky enough to get to continue to work with clients and employees that I've met along the way.
great,
So
great.
yeah.
Jen, what got you to kind of take that leap into entrepreneurship and business
Yeah.
ownership?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer isn't fancy. The answer, and I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs given my work in EO, but I was at Ceridian and I was a mom of two young kids, and I have an amazing husband who is a great dad and super supportive of my career. And I was lucky enough to have a really great career, but I was working and traveling all the time with these two little kids. And Ceridian went private, and it was just a good time for me to cash out and literally and metaphorically and start my own consulting business with the goal to try to have more balance. And then again, that was in 2008. And so I was lucky enough it was a recession. That part's not lucky, but
Right.
I was lucky
Yeah.
enough to have built this great network in the work that I had done at Ceridian and prior to that, United Health Group. And, and so I had this whole kind of network unbeknownst to me of kind of colleagues who had gone off to other organizations to lead them or start their own or whatever it was. And so I was lucky enough to get busy right away, especially during the recession when people weren't hiring and they were actually looking more for what we call today fractional talent, but at the time just looking for project-based marketers who could step in and do what they needed to do without having to worry about that full-time hire. And so the model that I set up for better or worse was perfect for what was happening in the economy. And then I was able to kind of rely on some of those past relationships. I was lucky enough to build JKR Consulting, it was called. So it's not a very fancy story, but I will tell you it definitely helped me realign my priorities in life with my kind of business goals and my need to kind of be in business and continue working because it's just how I'm built. So it was that's it's again not a fancy story, but it's a story.
Well, I think and it's your story, and I think
It's my story. Yeah.
so you may not find it as fancy as other people do, but I do think, um, as you spoke about that timing of you were in corporate America and the opportunity came along, whether you viewed it as opportunity or whether you viewed it otherwise, but sometimes that's uh, a jumping off point for folks
Mhm.
when they realize, hey, I'm going to do something on my own,
Yep.
and they maybe get that impetus, right? A little bit of push,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it was definitely self-induced. Like I definitely chose to do it, but I do talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who they kind of end up in the situation, especially right now, because of just the economy and the climate that we live in. But I think, so many of the successful entrepreneurs I talked to started with an idea and they just tried it on the side. If you've ever read, I think it's called Lean Six Sigma. I have a million books on my bookshelf, but it talks about this idea of just starting small with kind of a minimum viable product and testing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs, that's what they do. And I guess that's sort of what I did because I started as an individual consultant and saw a need, especially to kind of fill these gaps in like expertise from a marketing perspective. And then it became an agency, which became another agency. And then I did also start another business. It's more of an emerging startup, I say, but it's called Wisely Yonder. And it's actually a company slash travel agency that helps people with disabilities and mobility challenges travel. And I have arthritis, and I got it when I was 9 years old. So it's called systemic juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I've gotten to travel the world literally with friends and family and coworkers and love it. But it's just the world of travel isn't super friendly for people with mobility challenges. So that's kind of my passion project. So I kind of
What
can't
a
help
what an
myself.
awesome idea, because you're
Yeah,
right. It is a challenge for some folks to travel, and we take if we don't have those challenges, we take it for granted. But if
yeah,
you're in a
yeah,
wheelchair, or
yep,
you've got, like you said, arthritis, or you have hip or knee issues, it
yep.
can be a
Back
challenge. That's
issues,
cool.
just like a blown out knee from an old sports injury. I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of people think, well, I'm not disabled. It's like, no, you're not disabled, but it doesn't mean you don't have mobility challenges and
exactly.
they need to be accommodated and quite frankly should be accommodated so
Yeah,
that you can enjoy the same experiences that everyone else does.
totally agree.
So
Yeah,
I met some amazing people and had some amazing opportunities in that work, but my primary work is really in Blue Spark.
sure,
And
sure.
yeah,
Hey, Jen, just talk a little bit about some of the, common misconceptions, or maybe the things that you kind of, as you went into entrepreneurship, things you expected and were either quite a bit different from that, or
yeah,
something around the fact that I think we all get a picture in our head if we're thinking of going into a business for ourselves. How's that picture kind of aligned with what you expected?
yeah. I'll say a few things about that. One is none of us think we know what we're doing. None of us have it all figured out. And we're all willing to say that maybe, behind the door. But I don't think I've met a single engineer or not engineer, entrepreneur who has said, "Oh, I've got all the answers." And so I think people who maybe are starting out in entrepreneurship or maybe, have started and are hitting some obstacles, don't be afraid, don't fear because it is such a normal part of the journey.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that I think the secret is surrounding yourself with people who make it better and stronger and just being your authentic self and being aware of what it is that you're good at and what you're not good at. Another thing I've learned, which really surprised me, quite frankly, is who you show up personally, how you show up personally with friends and family, and that part of your life plays such a major role in your ability to be a successful entrepreneur. And I honestly, I'm like an Irish Catholic, right? Like, there's no room for feelings. Like these don't matter. And it turns out they really do. And how you show up as a person and, for me as a mom and as a leader and as a wife and as a mother, is so important to my success and my ability to lead a business, right? And so I've learned a lot, and really EO has done a lot for me there. But I've learned a lot that that's super important, and it's important for all entrepreneurs. And then the other thing I would say about entrepreneurship is you don't have to start with the big. One of my favorite sayings is, you don't have to know where you're going to be headed in the right direction. And every leadership book you'll ever read says, have a plan, have a system, have a process, document it all. Yes, 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 absolutely. But it's okay to wander a little bit. It's okay to be in search of the answers. And as long as you listen with like an open mind and an open heart, those answers will tell you something, and you will end up where you were supposed to be. And I see that so often with so many of my entrepreneur friends, because where they started and where they ended were not the same. Not true of everyone. Some are very, very
Mhm.
driven. And those systems like EOS and Pinnacle and, the work you do, those all play a major role in helping people like me get to that end destination. But I do think it's okay to wander along the way. So those are probably my biggest things that I've learned as I've stepped into this role in this world.
Oh, that's tremendous insight. I appreciate your vulnerability around the fact of saying, you don't have all the answers, because I think sometimes leaders feel like they're supposed to have all the answers, or they can't show that vulnerability of not having all the answers. And certainly every business owner is different, right? But and the fact that you're willing to share that, I really appreciate that, because I think as business owners we should be more vulnerable. We should be willing
Yeah.
to realize we don't have all the answers, and surrounding ourselves with talented folks is really the answer. I,
Yeah, one of my managers early on in my career at Ceridian told me that. He said his advice to me was like, Jen, you have got marketing down pat. You're a great marketer. But what you need to know and what you need to work on is making sure that you know what you're good at and what you're not good at, and surround yourself with people who are good where you're not, and get the heck out of the way. And that probably is the best advice I've ever gotten.
well, that's well said.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you were speaking before just a minute ago about sort of not maybe knowing the exact path you're going down. And
yeah,
I got this picture in my mind of taking a road trip.
yep,
And sometimes we take road trips and we know we're going somewhere. We
yep,
maybe don't know exactly where we're gonna end up. But
yep,
when we're on these road trips, we give ourselves kind of the ability to stop and look around, or take a
yeah,
detour, or
yep,
that sort of thing. And I think that's just a great story you told there, that um, again, I think too often we think we got to be right on the right on the highway, and we can't uh, verge off either way. But I think, as most entrepreneurs, I think, would say, sometimes their best ideas come when they're not on that straight and narrow path.
yep, yep. It's true. It's when you see the unexpected things, and you have those insights and those ahas, is when you're not looking, we call it clarity breaks, right?
Right. Yes.
Specifically my EO forum, like we talk about taking a clarity break when things get murky or muddy. And, it could be something like booking a flight and going to New York for a weekend by yourself. It can be driving to your cabin and just locking yourself in for on a weekend, whatever it is, but separating yourself from the world of that you're in every day to just think and see differently.
Yeah, I think getting away from the noise from time to
Yeah,
time is really,
yeah.
really critical. And it's not easy to do, because
No,
you get pulled in different directions.
you do. But even 5 minutes in the morning works.
Right.
Like even if you like don't check your email, and you don't check your voicemail, and you don't check your Teams channel, and you don't check your texts and or your social media platforms, and you do nothing with the first part of your day, but just spend 10 minutes thinking about what matters. Like it's amazing what a difference it can make in terms of how you end up prioritizing your day and where you focus, I think.
That's a great lead in, Jen, to my next question is, you've talked a bit about you're a business owner, you're leading EO, you're a family person, you've got children, you've got some health issues. Tell me a
Yep.
little bit about work-life balance and how do you go about prioritizing and making sure that you've got time for not only the business you're running, but the other important people in your life.
Yeah. So to be honest, it's an area I always need to work on more because entrepreneurs are driven to, well, I'll just speak for myself. I am driven to take on way more. I'm the worst sayer knower in the world. And so I then take on way more than I should, and my eyes are bigger than my stomach and all that fun stuff. But that said, I do actually have a couple of practices that I have put into place that help me. And one of them is I have this thing called an oak journal. And there was a gentleman, again, I feel like I keep going back to EO, but a gentleman that I met through EO who came and spoke to us. His name's Keith Richards. And he created this oak journal and he does this whole training around it. And it starts with every day you start with three things you're grateful for. And then you list your number one or your vision for the day. And then you list your three priorities, and then you can list everything else. And so I use that literally almost every single day. And then he introduces this idea of 10, 10, 10, which is 10 minutes of meditation, 10 minutes of journaling, and 10 minutes of reading. I don't do that every day. But when I do, it's amazing what a difference it makes because sometimes that 10 minutes of reading, whether it's like, interesting industry articles or it's leadership books or I'm a big historical fiction person. It's just my favorite book that I'm reading at the minute. It's amazing how, like, again, I start my days in a way better mind frame than just starting with you're rolling out of bed and already responding to Teams chats, right? Like it's just for me, and starting and ending the day with gratitude for me, it gives me a lot of peace because it reminds me that I'm incredibly fortunate in so many ways, and just remembering that when you wake up and remembering that when you go to bed, for me anyway, it like gives me so much perspective. Not perfect at it. And then the other thing I do is I try really hard. I'm not always good at this to prioritize things with my family over, like the things that absolutely critically I want to commit to. I get that first, and then I plan the rest of the stuff around it. I would be lying if I said I did the world's best job at that. It's a constant struggle, but
Sure.
I do a lot better than I used to, so I'll take it.
Well, I think when you can recognize improvement, that's a big deal, right? None of us are ever going to be perfect, but
Yeah,
when we can look back and then look where we're at today and say, you know what, I've gotten better at that.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's a win.
yeah,
I love your examples you gave that are so tangible
yeah,
to other business owners as to how to really balance that work-life balance. Because I'll tell you, in my coaching career, that I think that's the number one issue I see from business owners they're looking for ways to um, not be so tethered to the
yeah,
business
yeah,
24/7 and enjoy some of their family, their friends, their hobbies.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
easy to put them last. And that's why for me, this Oak Journal is so helpful because when I list, almost always like in the vision for the day, I'll write, be kind to myself or lead well. Like it's not things like get everything done on your list. Like, because trust me, I'm already planning on doing that, right? So it's trying to remind myself of the things I won't do well, and being kind to myself means drink water, get up and move, give yourself some grace. Like it can mean so many different things, right? And then the three things I try to always have one that's personal, one that's family related, and one that's work related. So if at the end of the day, the only thing I do is spend a half hour with my daughter because I wrote that down that day, then I win. I win because that was my goal for that day. Some days it's really little. Some days it's much bigger, right? So it helps me.
I think that ability to cut yourself some slack and not expect everything to be done to perfection
Yeah.
is really important because I think, again, I run into a lot of entrepreneurs who just have these high expectations
Yep.
and they're always chasing those high expectations. And
Yep.
it, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a
Oh,
bad thing, but I think giving ourselves a little bit of, again, cutting ourselves a little bit of slack and saying, okay, this is done well enough and I can move on and it
yeah.
doesn't have to be perfection. You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Jen, can you talk a little bit about, because I know in running marketing agencies, boy, there's a lot of change going on within your environment, whether it's with your clients or within
Mhm.
your own organization. But are there things you do to kind of adapt to uh, change? Again, either within your client's business or your business.
hmm Yeah, it's funny that this question is particularly timeful because I just had my all team meeting before this podcast, and I mentioned two big trends that we are going to be focused on for 2025, and we already are, quite frankly. But the two that I'm seeing a ton of with our clients as well as within our own agency are AI and the adoption of AI, and then offshoring. And so, what I was talking to our team about is where Blue Sparq, provides the most value is in our ability to strategically think for and plan for a marketing program and investment that aligns with a business leader's objectives or a marketing leader's objectives, right? So, like, we're very capable. If you come to us and you say, we need to introduce a new product line in North America, or we need to generate leads that equal this much in sales, like, we're very capable of developing those strategies. Our ability to augment the execution of those programs with AI tools and offshoring is huge for marketing agencies. And it has to be done intentionally and correctly and smartly, right? So while it may not make our services less expensive, it will allow us to deliver more and more quickly, right? So we'll be, for example, you can use a personalized chat for a client to create base content that is driven by a content strategy that my team builds and that is then edited and refined and polished, based on what we know to be true and authentic for a client. And that allows us to just create maybe 2 to 3 times more content than we would have been able to with the same budget.
Wow.
So that's just a really tactical example. AI doesn't solve all the world's problems, but our clients are using it too. And a lot of people, and I have a senior in high school, and her teachers will say, don't use AI, don't use AI. And man, if I was a college professor or a high school teacher, I would be saying, here's an assignment, use AI. Show me how you can use AI to make this better or to be creative and innovative with AI. So I just think that's a big one. And like I said, I just was with a whole slew of entrepreneurs yesterday, and we were all talking about how it was affecting our industry. And then really understanding the balance between what needs to stay, core as a core competency to the agency and where those opportunities to find labor and resources that allow us again to scale at a cost effective rate without sacrificing quality. Because you're in a product based business, it's a lot easier to offshore, as long as the quality that you get back is fine. When you're in a service based business, in my opinion, you have to be really, really careful because I will not sacrifice the quality of what we do
Yeah.
because of the cost of offshoring. It doesn't work. You have to know what that balance is.
I think we've all run into those issues where we've had, whether it's customer service support or other type of
Yep.
technical support that's coming from offshore, and we've been frustrated and
hmm
disappointed with the service.
Right.
I really liked what you said about AI because I think, again, as business leaders, we really need to embrace AI or any new technology because we're not going to be able to fight it. We're not going to, it's not like we can say, well, you know, if I don't adopt it, it's not going to happen. I think it's real easy to, kind of have things, others pass you by if you don't adapt to current technology. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
really glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
What
I
is,
mean, think about, and this maybe dates me, but I remember like I graduated during the recession, and the reason why I got a job as a secretary, which by the way I'm horrible at, absolutely horrible at, but that's okay, is because I knew how to use the computer they had bought that no one else could figure out how to use. And I just think AI is so similar to that. I get that there's a lot of scary things about it, and we need to take it seriously, and I don't dismiss that for a minute. But the ability to use AI to fast forward work so that you can spend more time on strategic work is akin to me to the computer. No longer handwriting everything and then typing it. I mean, it's crazy and it's really fun and it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember my first job, right out of college. We had one computer that we shared with three departments. I mean, we literally had 15 people sharing a computer. Now, today we can't fathom that, but back then there were so little applications we had on a
Right.
computer that it was okay. But I
Yeah.
remember being that, when you're the young kid, you kind of get
Yeah.
thrown into that stuff.
Yeah. Well, they
And
were like, you know how to use this? Show me. And I turned it on and I
right.
opened the whatever Microsoft Word was called at the time. And I started typing, and they're like, oh my gosh,
Well,
like it was
back then,
great.
back when I did it, it was DOS.
Oh,
And you had to like type a
yeah,
command.
you're a little before me. I don't know how to use DOS. But
Now I'm dating myself.
oh, that's funny.
Well, Jen, talk a little. You touched on it there a little bit, but what is the next 3 to 5 years look for you personally and for your company? Just talk a little bit
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what
We use Pinnacle Consulting, or not consulting, but well, maybe it's called that 90.io. We use 90.io. And I would highly recommend again the work you do, the work, any type of system like that, I think is super important. And so we use 90.io to track our goals and our rocks and our metrics and our KPIs and all that kind of stuff. And so based on that, our goal for the next 3 to 5 years, is primarily based on client retention, employee talent in retention, and then also revenue. And so our goal is to continue to grow with, on a steady trajectory, within the niche that we serve. So that's Blue Sparq Marketing School. And the really awesome and cool thing is despite how crazy this year has been, we've had a really good year. So it's been, all the right building blocks are in place to indicate that 2025 will be a good year for us and that we'll continue to stay on track with that. But I do think it's a key, like again, what you do is super important because in my last business, we were misaligned on whether or not like a strategic coach who can kind of help guide that and hold you accountable is important. And I just think it's so critical. So I would give that advice to entrepreneurs who are working on growing businesses. But then for me personally, as my daughter, I have two kids, as my daughter leaves high school, trying to figure out exactly what life looks like for my husband and I, because it really changes how we will spend our time and what we will do. So getting excited about sharing some common interests and spending some more time getting to do that. And then, of course, Wise Blue Yonder and the travel piece and kind of bringing that to life. So I still have a lot on my plate to figure out.
it all sounds like good stuff though. So
It's fun.
that's good.
It's fun.
Well, finally, as we wrap up here, Jen, if you could give advice to somebody who's considering business ownership,
Hmm.
entrepreneurship,
Yep.
they're just starting their journey, or maybe they're thinking of dipping their toes in. What
Yep.
what advice would you give them?
Yeah. Well, if you're thinking about just dipping your toes in, I would recommend finding an organization like a NABO if you're a woman. And I'm going to forget some of the other ones that are available. STEM or Scale. I should know this. There's a lot of entrepreneurial, like getting started resources available, and it will put you with cohorts and people that will help you and support you along the way. And then, of course, if you already have a $250,000 or higher business, look at places like EO, Coalition 9, Vistage, like get into a peer advisory group if that's your thing, because surrounding yourself by like-minded people really, really helps. The other thing I would say is if you're really just starting and you're just not sure you have it in you, like just give it a try. Just do something small. Come up with a single goal because you can. You can do it. And if you put your mind to it, you will do it. You just will. You just have to take that little step or that big step and just go. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Jen. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it,
absolutely.
and I enjoyed learning more about you and about Blue Sparq Marketing. It sounds like you got a great company there, and I'll be watching for how things develop for you in the future.
Wonderful. Well, thanks. It was a pleasure. Have a great day.
And you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate everyone who's watching, and we look forward to seeing you at a future